Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Public Service Commission of South Carolina. We're here for two rules to show cause hearing. Before we get started, please join me in a brief moment of silence. Thank you. Let's take roll. President of the hearing room are Commissioners Williams, Powers, Vice Chair Belzer, and Chairman Williams. Joining us virtually, we have Commissioners Caston, Thomas, and Urban. Executive Director Boyd, would you please read the docket?
Yes, sir. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the Commission. The first docket before the Commission is docket number 2021-71T. It relates to the petition of the Office of Regulatory Staff to revoke certificates of public convenience and necessity of certain motor carriers for failure to maintain and file evidence of insurance. The Office of Regulatory Staff's petition in docket number 2021-71T was filed on March 2nd, 2021. A notice of hearing was issued for today's hearing, Wednesday, May 26, 2021 at 10 o'clock a.m. That notice was issued on March 16th. Mr. Chairman, the docket is in order.
All right. Thank you very much. Applicant?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Lacey Hammonds with the Office of Regulatory Staff.
All right. If you would, please call your witness.
Yes, sir. Mrs. Chauvin, ORS calls Carol Chauvin.
Ms. Chauvin, would you please take the witness stand?
Need to raise my right hand.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Chauvin, do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Attorney Hammonds, please proceed.
Thank you. Ms. Chauvin, would you please state your name, business address, and occupation?
My name is Carol Chauvin. My business address is 1401 Main Street, Columbia, South Carolina, and I am employed by the South Carolina Office of Regulatory Staff as a program specialist in the Transportation Department.
And what are your duties, Ms. Chauvin?
In part, I am responsible for managing the insurance filings of motor carriers that hold a Class C and Class E Certificate of Public Convenience and Necessity. I also serve as the custodian of business records for the Transportation Department.
And what is the purpose of your testimony in today's proceeding?
The purpose of my testimony is to provide information related to Class C and Class E motor carriers that have failed to file proof of insurance with the ORS.
Do the state statutes and commission rules and regulations require carriers to file proof of insurance?
Yes, Commission Regulation 103-171 states that evidence of bodily injury and property damage insurance will be filed on the Form E, Uniform Motor Carrier Bodily Injury and Property Damage Liability Certificate of Insurance, and Commission Regulation 103-174 states that evidence of cargo insurance will be filed on the Form H, Uniform Motor Carrier Cargo Certificate of Insurance. Additionally, South Carolina Code Annotated Section 58-23-910 requires applicants for motor vehicle certificates of public convenience and necessity to obtain liability and property damage insurance or a reasonable alternative, and states that such insurance must be kept in full force and effect. A failure to do so is cause for the revocation of the certificate.
Mrs. Chauvin, do you have a copy of the Exhibit A and Exhibit B that were filed with the petition in this matter?
Yes.
Will you please describe those documents?
Yes, the first document is a copy of Exhibit A to the ORS petition in this case. Exhibit A, which I prepared and was filed with the petition on March the 2nd, 2021, lists carriers which were out of compliance for failure to have evidence of insurance on file with the ORS when the petition was filed. The second document is my affidavit dated March the 2nd, 2021, which was filed as Exhibit B to the petition in this case.
Mr. Chairman, I would ask that Exhibit A and Exhibit B attached to the ORS petition be marked as a hearing exhibit and entered into the record.
ORS Exhibits A and B will be marked as a composite exhibit and entered into the record as hearing Exhibit 1.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mrs. Chauvin, have the certificate holders listed in Exhibit A to the ORS petition been afforded notice of this hearing?
Yes, a copy of the petition and all exhibits were mailed to each of the carriers listed in Exhibit A. Additionally, from my understanding, a notice of the hearing in this case was mailed by the Public Service Commission staff to each of the carriers or their registered agent listed in Exhibit A to the petition on March the 18th, 2021.
And have you had any response to the petition?
Yes, of the 99 carriers listed in Exhibit A to the ORS petition, 10 carriers have now filed appropriate documentation with the ORS. 9 carriers had their certificates canceled, and 5 carriers were granted temporary suspension of their certificates by the Commission. So as of today, 75 carriers remain out of compliance.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, ORS provided a revised Exhibit A pursuant to this hearing, and I just would like to confirm that the Commission did receive the revised Exhibit A.
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Chauvin, did you prepare a revised Exhibit A in this matter?
Yes, the revised Exhibit A, I prepared that yesterday on May the 25th, 2021 by verifying the names and the information again. The revised exhibit lists by name the 75 carriers that were included in the original Exhibit A to the ORS petition in this case who still have not provided proof of insurance to ORS, have not had their certificate canceled, or were not granted temporary suspension by the Commission.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I ask that the revised Exhibit A that Mrs. Chauvin has identified be marked for identification and entered into the record.
ORS Revised Exhibit A will be marked and entered into the record as hearing Exhibit 2.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Chauvin, what action does ORS recommend?
ORS recommends that the Commission revoke the certificates of those 75 carriers listed in revised Exhibit A for their failure to comply with the insurance requirements of the statutes and regulations.
Thank you. And does this complete your testimony?
Yes, it does.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's all from ORS.
All right, thank you. Any questions for this witness from commissioners?
Mr. Chairman,
Vice Chair Belzer?
thank you. Good morning, Ms. Chauvin. How are you today?
Good morning. How are you?
Fine. It's good to see you and hear you.
Thank you.
I just, on the insurance, am I correct that insurance filings must be received from the insurance company, that the carrier does not send in the Form Es and Form H's that you discussed in your testimony?
That's correct.
Okay. And at one point, there was some electronic, or there was possible exploration of electronic filing and access of that by ORS instead of things being mailed in or faxed in. Has that occurred?
Yes, it has. That's been going on several years now. It's called the National Online Registry System, or the acronym, we call it NORS. And yes, that is where we receive probably 75% of our Form E and Form H and Form K insurance filings.
Okay.
It's from that electronic system.
And but you still receive hard copies occasionally as well, is that?
We do, and we still get faxed copies, and we get emailed to myself and my supervisor. Will get emails from an agent, that sends us a Form E. So yeah, we still get them in different ways.
But they do have to come from somebody in the, associated with the, insurance coverage and not from the carrier itself. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
That's correct. We do not accept any filings from the carrier,
Okay.
ever.
Thank you, Ms. Chauvin. Appreciate your testimony this
Okay.
morning. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
All right, any other questions for this witness? All right, ma'am, you may step down.
Thank you.
Attorney Boyd, would you read the next docket, please?
Yes, sir, Mr.
I'm
Chairman.
sorry,
Thank you.
Executive Director Boyd.
Yes, sir. The next docket, which was also noticed for 10 o'clock a.m. this morning, is docket number 2021-72T. It's related to the petition of the Office of Regulatory Staff to revoke certificates of public convenience and necessity of certain motor carriers for non-payment of decal fees. The Office of Regulatory Staff's petition was filed on March 2nd, 2021, and on March 16th, 2021, a notice of hearing was issued for the hearing in docket 2021-72T for today, Wednesday, May 26, 2021, at 10 o'clock a.m. The docket is in order, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you very much. Applicant?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. ORS calls Carol Chauvin.
Ms. Chauvin, if you would please take the stand.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Ms. Chauvin, do you solemnly affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please proceed, Attorney Hammond.
Thank you. Mrs. Chauvin, would you please state your name, business address, and occupation?
My name is Carol Chauvin. My business address is 1401 Main Street, Columbia, South Carolina. And I am employed by the South Carolina Office of Regulatory Staff as a program specialist in the Transportation Department.
And what are your duties?
In part, I am responsible for managing the semi-annual licensing and decal fee payment process for motor carriers that hold a Class C certificate of public convenience and necessity. I also serve as the custodian of business records for the Transportation Department.
And what is the purpose of your testimony in today's proceeding?
The purpose of my testimony is to provide information related to Class C motor carriers that have failed to pay semi-annual decal fees to the ORS.
And do South Carolina statutes, commission rule, and regulations require carriers to pay these semi-annual license fees?
Yes, South Carolina Code annotated section 58-23-560 states that holders of Class A, B, or C certificates with less than 20 vehicles must semi-annually on or before January the 1st and July the 1st of each year must pay a specified fee depending on the number and the weight of vehicles which they operate.
Do you have a copy of the Exhibit A and the Exhibit B that were filed with the petition in this matter?
I do.
Will you describe those documents, please?
Okay, the first document is a copy of Exhibit A to the ORS petition in this case. Exhibit A, which I prepared and was filed with the petition on March the 2nd, 2021, lists carriers which were out of compliance for non-payment of decal fees to the ORS when the petition was filed. The second document is my affidavit dated March the 2nd, 2021, which was filed as Exhibit B to the petition in this case.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I ask that the Exhibit A and Exhibit B to the ORS petition that Ms. Chauvin has just described be marked as a hearing exhibit and entered into the record.
ORS Exhibit A and B will be marked as a composite exhibit and entered into the record as hearing Exhibit 1.
Thank you. Ms. Chauvin, have the certificated holders listed in Exhibit A to the ORS petition been afforded notice of this hearing?
Yes, a copy of the petition and all exhibits were mailed by ORS to each of the carriers listed in Exhibit A, and additionally, from my understanding, a notice of the hearing in this case was mailed by the Public Service Commission staff to each of the carriers or their registered agents listed in Exhibit A to the petition on March the 18th, 2021.
And have you had any response to that petition?
Yes, of the 155 carriers listed in Exhibit A to the ORS petition, 50 carriers have now filed appropriate documentation along with payment of the decal fees with the ORS. 11 carriers have had their certificates canceled. 9 carriers were granted temporary suspension by the commission.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, ORS provided a revised Exhibit A pursuant to this hearing, and would just like to confirm that the commission does have that revised Exhibit A.
Yes, ma'am, we do.
Thank you. Ms. Chauvin, have you prepared a revised Exhibit A?
Yes, I prepared the revised Exhibit A yesterday, May the 25th, 2021, by verifying the names and information again. The revised Exhibit A lists by name the 85 carriers that was included in the original Exhibit A to the ORS petition in this case, who still have not provided payment for decal fees to ORS, have not had their certificates canceled, or have not been granted temporary suspension by the commission of their certificates.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I ask that the revised Exhibit A as identified by Mrs. Chauvin be marked for identification and entered to the record as the next hearing exhibit.
ORS revised Exhibit A will be marked and entered into the record as hearing Exhibit 2.
Thank you. Ms. Chauvin, what action does ORS recommend?
ORS recommends that the commission revoke the certificates of those 85 carriers listed in revised Exhibit A for their failure to comply with the licensing and decal fee requirements of the statutes and regulations.
And does this conclude your testimony?
It does.
Thank you, Ms. Chauvin. Mr. Chairman, that is all from ORS.
Any questions from commissioners for this witness? All right, hearing none. Anything else from you, Executive Director Boyd?
No, Mr. Chairman, I was going to ask about proposed orders. If you wanted to ask Ms. Hammonds if she'd like to submit one or file one or two, but that's it. Nothing else for me.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Hammonds. If you want to provide a proposed order, you're welcome to do so.
Okay,
Do you
thank
have anything else for us?
We do not, Mr. Chairman. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Have a great day. Ms. Chauvin, thank you for
Okay.
participating today.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
All right, we are adjourned.
All right.